All right, we started recording, so I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get started with introductions before we get into the actual presentation, since we owe all this to 10 at the top and Aaron's and their efforts over there to pull us all together. We very much appreciate the efforts they're doing to promote the events that we've been doing and pulling this all together. Aaron, do you want to say a few words about 10 at the top and what we're doing?
Well, I just want to say thanks to all three of you. This has been above and beyond your normal work to put this on and then to coordinate it together. So thank you all for that. This is an important time for our business owners to look at ways to digitize the sales of their products and services. So thank you again for that. 10 at the Top is a regional convening organization for the 10 counties at the top of the state. I specifically work with the Upstate Entrepreneur Ecosystem, which is the mesh or network of support for entrepreneurs, business owners, founders in our upstate region. So glad everybody can be here today.
Thanks, Aaron. And I must say they do a fine job. We've had really good interaction with 10 at the top, and we appreciate everything you guys do. So with me today on the presentation, we've got Anna from the Women's Business Center. Now, Anna, do you want to say a few words about WBC?
Sure, I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm the program director, Anna Para, with the Community Works Women's Business Center. We're located in Greenville, South Carolina, but work with Community works with people statewide, and we work with women entrepreneurs in the upstate. So what we do is we provide assistance, business, technical assistance, and consultations, trainings, and webinars to women entrepreneurs at every level. And we are one of 3 SBA partners here today. So I'm just really happy that we were able to partner with SCORE and SBDC, thanks to Aaron's work at 10 at the Top. And look forward to finishing up this series today, but continuing to work with all of you and hopefully hearing from some of the people on the webinar today if they reach out to the Women's Business Center.
Earl, your volume.
Sorry about that. I have 2 mutes on this system here. I was saying I very much enjoy working with Anna and her team over there. We've got a few clients that we're working with in conjunction, so that's a great experience. With us also is Jerry from SCORE. You want to tell us a little bit about what's going on at SCORE today, Jerry?
Sure, thanks, Gareth. Yeah, so we're at SCORE. We're the volunteer arm of the same type of services. We help by mainly through one-on-one mentoring, and then we help out with these types of workshops. And yeah, really, I want to echo what everybody else has said. It's been a pleasure working with Aaron and Earl and Anna on this program, and hope everybody looks forward to seeing what Earl has to present this morning.
Great, thanks, Jerry. It's great to have all 3 arms of the SBA's boots on the ground here on one program. So Anna and Jerry will be joining in on the conversation today. They'll be adding into areas that I'll be covering in the slides. So we'll keep it conversational and keep things lively as best we can. So. All right, so I'm Earl Gregorich. I'm the area manager with the Greenville SBDC in Greenville, South Carolina. And we do very similar things to SCORE and the Women's Business Center. We consult small businesses, everything from startup through exit strategy and everything in between. We have multiple consultants throughout the state. We have approximately 50 of us running around the state and 20 offices. So if it's a business challenge, we're one of the best first phone calls you can make, because all 3 of our organizations really, there's no charge for our services, and we're very well connected to our communities. So feel free to reach out, not only on e-commerce, which we'll be talking about today, but on other topics as well regarding your business. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with today's content. We're here to talk primarily about, the right technology for e-commerce. Everything that we've talked about up to this point has been some of the logistics of working e-commerce and uh, some of the website strategies for e-commerce and those types of things. So today we're really going to focus in on what are some of the technologies that we use to make this all work. So if you're in e-commerce, you realize that it takes a fairly well-stocked toolbox to make this happen. So we're going to talk about the various tools that you have in your toolbox. But one thing I do want to emphasize is, technology is not the only answer to e-commerce. Many people, and I've said this in one of the other sessions, I know many folks, they build that shopping cart or that e-commerce platform out, and then they go hide behind the curtain and turn off the phones and expect it to just roll the orders in. And the fact of the matter is, you still have to have that personal touch. This is just one aspect of selling, that website or that online platform. So don't think that technology is going to eliminate a lot of the other things that go with the quote unquote business side of things. You still have to do that kind of stuff. It can be helpful to have tech, but make sure that the tech is not getting in the way of you getting things done. That software package that you're looking at and reading all the features and benefits for, it may sound wonderful and great, but working through each and every aspect of getting that implemented into a business can actually weigh you down. And if it gets too complex, you won't use it. It'll become a stumbling block. So make sure it's friendly in technology that you're using. And then, make sure that you're still making that personal connection. People still want to buy from people. They're not buying from a screen. They're not buying from a logo. They're buying from the person on the other end. So make sure that that is well presented across any technology that you might implement. So one of the things that we get asked a lot when we get into this discussion with clients is, should I do this myself? I can save a lot of money versus going out and paying somebody to do this for me. And honestly, there are some pros and cons to both scenarios. A lot of it revolves around some of the things we have bulleted on this list here. And if you're working with a consultant from SCORE, Women's Business Centers, SBDC, a lot of times through our discussion with you, we can kind of get a decent assessment as to whether or not you're the do-it-yourself type for this type of work. That's not to say we're always right, but we deal with people all the time that are trying to make this decision. And a lot of times I can look at somebody and say, hey, look, the budget might be DIY, but the passion, the effort, the interest, the education that's going to require to do this may not fit with your time schedule or frankly your interest level. So it's always good, regardless, to sit down with a consultant and maybe work through this question. But some of the things I want you to consider when you're asking this is, well, how much time do you have versus how much money do you have? If you've got a time to sit down and learn some of these platforms and learn some of this technology, great, take the time, do it. It can save yourself some money. Even if you do plan on hiring a professional, I do still recommend that you sit down, spend some time, learn the platforms, learn the features. You don't want to walk into someone who's going to do this professionally and not know the lingo, not know what you should be asking, not know what they're telling you. So it does require a certain amount of time. If you have more time than you have money, you might still be able to do this DIY. But if you're on a time crunch, you got a short runway, a very short timeline to get a site up and get running, then you might want to go ahead and look to budget some additional money and go ahead and hire that professional to do it. Short-term needs versus long-term maintenance. So short-term needs, if you need to get a site up and running, you can do that literally in an afternoon. I can sit down with you. Any one of us probably could sit down with you and say, okay, here's how you set up a Shopify cart or a WooCommerce plugin to your WordPress site or whatever, and we can have products out there in a matter of an hour or two. But that doesn't address the long-term needs of your business. You need to determine, do I want to maintain this cart long-term? If I do, then I better know how to do all the ins and outs. I need to know how to manipulate the software and so on. So hiring somebody out there to do it where they just hand you the keys and walk away and say, good luck, might not give you that long-term maintenance that you need if you're not as tech savvy with the platform. That said, maybe you want to take the hands-off approach and say, look, somebody can build this, somebody can maintain this. I'll just fulfill the orders. I'll do what I do best. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that every time you need a change, every time you need to update that site, you're going to have to pick up the phone and get out the checkbook. So just understand there is some trade-off there as well. Hostage versus freedom. I know Anna and Jerry will agree with me. We talk to clients all the time. I need to change my website. Well, go ahead, make the phone call. Well, I can't locate my web developer. And when I do, it takes 2 weeks to get a turnaround on something, and so on and so on. You do run the risk, if you completely go the professional route, that you might be in that quote unquote hostage type of a situation where you're at the mercy of that individual. Where if you learn things and you get into that DIY mode where you know the platform, you can make the small changes, at least you have a little bit more freedom on your e-commerce efforts. Be honest with yourself about your skills. Not all of us are graphic designers. Not all of us are photographers. Not all of us are wordsmiths. And all of those skills are very important to having a successful online cart. No matter what technology you use, if you take a poor picture, if you write a lousy description, it's just not going to do well. So be honest with yourself. Hire out those things, get some help with the areas that maybe you're not as strong on, and work on the ones that you can do yourself. So those are just some of the things we would take you through if you came in and talked to us one-on-one, that we would want you to consider on that DIY versus pro.
Hey, Earl, I got a quick comment on this. I think this is a great slide, and it sort of ties to your first slide in terms of that technology not being the complete answer. It's certainly very important, especially for e-commerce, but this balance that Earl's sort of getting at on this slide here in terms of the time requirements from the entrepreneur. You've got so many things that you're doing to run your business. The actual operation of whatever you're going to be selling, the packaging, the labeling, the sourcing, the sales and marketing activities that are going to go along with the business, the admin components of tracking, whatever you need to do to keep up with the business. So there's a lot there. And this is an important piece, but all these things that Earl hit on in this slide, it's sort of think about it in terms of balancing. And that could help you with this, sort of do it yourself versus the pro. But just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, thank you. And you could actually say that about any aspect of the business, not just e-commerce. I mean, you decide you want to hire somebody to clean the offices, you want to hire somebody to do the logos or outbound marketing or whatever. You have to do that. Does it make sense from a time versus money standpoint and so on? So yeah, it goes beyond even e-commerce. So we'll get started with the base technology that everybody tends to migrate to as soon as they start thinking about e-commerce, and that's what kind of a shopping cart am I going to put out there? So what I typically do with a client as I take them through some of these questions that you see, and first I ask them, what do you need in a shopping cart? What are you selling? Is this a product? Is it a service? Do you need to present a lot of options? If this is a piece of clothing, do you have to have 3 different sizes and 5 different colors and 2 different styles and so on? Or is this just, this is the product, that's it, there's the price, buy it? Do you have a complex shipping situation? You have a product that is unusually heavy, something maybe that's large and is outside the bounds of the normal shipping parameters for UPS and FedEx. What are some of those things that come into play? Maybe your sales transaction is a complex transaction. Maybe it requires financing. Maybe it's a 3 or 4 step process to get from what I'm actually looking at versus what I'm actually buying. All of these kinds of things come into play because, frankly, if you have something that takes some in-depth interaction, multiple conversations with a client before they get to the point where they feel comfortable in buying, a Shopify e-commerce cart may not be the answer. It may be more of a educational site that has the option to ultimately come in and buy or make payments or whatever. So e-commerce can take on many different forms. It's not always just that flat out shopping cart. Do you need a full service type of a shopping cart, or do you just need to plug this into an existing site that maybe takes care of other things like blogging and SEO, and all you need is to be able to collect the funds and safely and securely conduct a credit card transaction? If coding is an issue, you're not a technology geek like myself that can go in there and play with the code and massage that website into what you actually want it to be, then you want a stronger cart software that can do that kind of stuff without you having to look at code. And we'll talk about some specific brands here in just a moment that you can consider, and most of them don't these days require coding, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about that. And then how does it interact with your other platforms? You're running QuickBooks, you might have social media out there, you might have some analytics programs that you're running. Will this cart plug into all of those things? It's super aggravating as a small business owner to have inventory in 3 different places just because your 3 platforms don't talk to each other. QuickBooks says you have 6 of something, your website says you have 5 of it, and your back office system says you're out. So if you can't link those up, it will make your life more difficult rather than making it run smoothly. So make sure the interactivity of the platforms are working for you. Most of your small businesses running the common packages like QuickBooks and like those all tend to work well with the mainstream shopping carts, but don't take that for granted. Make sure that everything that you have in place will work with the cart that you choose. So some of the more popular carts that are out there, and you see some of the logos on the right, but Jari and Anna, you can chime in on others that you may have come across there, but Shopify is typically the top of the list with most folks because it's a very easy cart to learn. It requires no coding. It leads you through the process, and even its entry level package seems to be fairly robust for the simple type of a product. You might have to go to a medium or large size program or package to get some of the bells and whistles that you want, but most of my clients find Shopify to be very easy. It interacts well with other platforms and the like. Squarespace is popular as well, not as popular as Shopify, but I have clients that use Squarespace. It tends to be, I would say, in my opinion anyway, it tends to be a little bit more expensive, but it also, I think, has a little bit more freedom of design than the Shopify was. Shopify, you select a theme or a look and you drop your cart information into it. Squarespace gives you a little bit more freedom to move things around on the screen, make the site a little bit more to personalize to your clientele. Social platforms, you certainly can sell directly out of, a lot of the social media platforms out there. They're offering a way for you to sell directly to clients these days. Pick the platform that your clients hang out on, see what they offer as far as e-commerce, and maybe you've got the only solution you need. I personally am a big fan of having your home-based cart on your own website and using social media to drive traffic to that. Nothing says you can't use both. You certainly can. You just have to be able to work your way through the logistics, things like tracking inventory across multiple platforms, making sure your pricing is consistent across all platforms, make sure your messaging is consistent across all platforms, and so on. So if you decide to do a mosaic of these, Squarespace and a social platform, or your blog and Shopify or whatever, just make sure you're consistent across all of the platforms that you have. Then that last one, do it yourself. We tend to put everything in there that is not just a all-in-one platform. So This would be like a combination of WordPress, WooCommerce. I throw Wix in there because in my opinion, it's a lesser solution to these because it's a lower price. It doesn't have as robust of programs as some of these other programs do. Although I'm sure you can upgrade from their basics to get some better capabilities. But GoDaddy has its own shopping cart program. So anything that falls into those types of categories would be what I would consider a DIY. You will have to work your way through it unless you hire one of their internal professionals to do it for you. But Anna, Jerry, do you hear of other platforms there that you work with? Not on the list here.
So I think you've covered it as far as what our clients mostly work with. I would reiterate that Squarespace is what most creative folks, those in the creative field, seem to enjoy the most. That ability to design based on what they want the look to be and have control over that is really a big part of it. But it is all about what your business and finding the right fit. And I usually encourage folks to kind of shop around with the shopping carts and see what works best for the type of business. We do have clients who work a lot on social or sell through social platforms. They like more of that interaction with folks and being able to interact that way. But we do kind of similar to Earl, we say, if you can have something that complements your site that usually or have a good social media presence that complements what you're doing, that's the most important piece.
Yeah, we've seen similar platforms, Earl, as what you have here. We actually don't come across too many. A lot of the clients that we have not really moved that far into e-commerce. Most of them are other types of manufacturing service businesses, but usually when they do get there, it's the main product with Shopify being at the top of the list.
Yeah, that's about what we see as well. One thing I failed to mention that you should also do when you're in the process of selecting a cart is call their customer service. See if they answer. See if they're available at the times that you're going to be working on your cart. That is huge, especially if you're new to this and you're not real comfortable working with the technology and the platforms. Make sure you can interact with their customer service, see what you get when you pick up the phone and call them. Do you have to wait for an hour? Do you get an answer in 5 minutes? And so on. So yeah, definitely check that out.
And Earl, there's
Yes.
a question in the chat, but I think it relates to a bigger question, which goes back to how well the different carts integrate. So the question is that they just started Wix, and do you know if it's reliable with QuickBooks use? And so maybe you could just talk a little bit about how to understand how your cart how to test how well it interacts. Like, you can sell on Facebook through your cart and you can sell on Instagram through your cart, but how do you check to see if that's even possible?
Yeah, so that's a great question. With QuickBooks and really any other platform, one of the best things to do is to see first and foremost, is there a setting? If as you're going through the packages that are being offered, typically they will list the settings or the features that come with the platform, and it will say QuickBooks compatible or whatever. The other thing that you can do is see if there are plugins, if that's applicable to the program or the platform that you're considering. See if there are plugins for the particular item that you want to interact with. So, for instance, is there a QuickBooks plugin for WooCommerce and so on? Because typically any package that you want to interact with your e-commerce cart is going to do it in one of a few ways. It's either going to do it through a plugin, it's going to have it built into the software, or it's going to be a download and upload type of scenario. So even your lesser cart programs out there will most likely have the ability to download data in mass, and then that can be massaged into the format that QuickBooks requires to upload in order to get the data that you need into QuickBooks in there. That is definitely not the way you want to do it all the time. But if that's the only way you can do it, and you're in deeply into a legacy type of situation where you've been running this massive cart for a long time, and now you got QuickBooks and you want to get them to talk, and there's no other way, well, you can do it that way. But do the homework up front first and see if there's a plugin, see if there's a setting in the software that is available. And again, that's a really good one to call up their customer service and ask them before you make the purchase. You get to test their customer service and you get to answer your question on that platform.
Good. And Earl, very quickly, what's a plugin?
So a plugin is a smaller program that someone has written that you will load up, and it will work side by side with the platform that you've chosen. So the primary example is you have WordPress, which is primarily a blogging platform. It's a website building and blogging platform. And if you wanted to add a cart to that blogging platform, you would go out and get a plugin or a separate program that you would then load up. It would work seamlessly with WordPress and add the e-commerce function to that platform. So anytime we talk about plugins, it's just some additional program that you add to what you're already running to do something more than you have been able to do with the bigger platform.
Let's get a quick comment on QuickBooks for everybody, just to be a little careful, because the desktop and the online versions, they're quite different. So if you see something advertised and it simply says compatible with QuickBooks, you want to make sure it's the version that you're using, and you're probably going to see more compatibility with the online version. So just be a little careful on that.
Yeah, great point. Great point. All right, so some other things that you want to take into consideration are the transaction logistics. You know, as I indicated earlier, not everybody handles shipping the same way. You may have products that easily go into a box or an envelope. You can toss in the mailbox and away they go. Others may have something extremely fragile, something outside the parameters of your typical shipping container. If that's the case, you want to make sure that the cart that you choose has the flexibility to handle that. You may be able to do a flat rate shipping and not even need any kind of shipping. You may incorporate shipping into the price of your product and not need a separate shipping consideration. But if in my history, I sold welding equipment, and I sold everything from a glove that I could literally put in an envelope and mail, to a welder that required me to call up an 18-wheeler and load it up in the back and send it cross country. So you can imagine the e-commerce shipping challenges that presented. So consider the breadth of the product that you're going to put on the cart and make sure you can accommodate those shipping extremes, both ends, before you sign up for a platform. Taxes, that's growing to be a more and more complex aspect of e-commerce. We're getting away from the days of where if you sold it across state lines, you didn't have to collect tax and you didn't have to worry about it. Now the laws are changing. And if you're selling, at least if you're selling a significant amount into another state, you will have to collect sales tax and report it back to that other state. So make sure you understand the rules and regs on what your tax situation is going to be, and make sure your software has the capability of tracking that properly, so you don't get yourself in some hot water there. And then customer service, you now are the customer service. You have to do better than everybody else that you're not getting customer service from. You're getting plenty of examples on how not to do it. Don't be that person. Make sure that your website is set up such that you can deliver good customer service. People know how to get a hold of you. You can do it in a timely manner. And part of that will be making sure that your policies are well spelled out on the website. In fact, if you're going to use credit card processing, in many cases, they will not allow you to complete your gateway application until you have clearly spelled out all of your policies on your website. So make sure you have out there, what do you do if you need to return an item? What kind of fees are involved with that return or other transactions that somebody may have with your company? What are the privacy policies that you have? It's good these days to also have a section in there about cybersecurity, how you're protecting the data that you're gathering from these individuals and so on. And of course, if you're dealing with a target market that falls into some of the more protected demographics, children, HIPAA data, things like that, you want to make sure you're addressing those kinds of things in your policies as well. So you're going to go through all this work, you kind of want to get paid at some point, right? So the next thing we're going to talk about are those gateways. So many of you who are already in business probably are actually working with a gateway and maybe not even realize that that's what it is. But you have methods of getting paid online that you can incorporate into your cart, into some of these other platforms when you're selling online. So all of your carts will have some kind of a specific payment program associated with them. You know, Shopify has its own payment programming, Squarespace has its own, and so on. You need to determine whether that's a good or better deal than what you might be able to get individually. So that's one. Aaron, is there a
Earl,
question? Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I just want to, before you get too far down the road, there were two really good questions about the previous slide.
Okay.
And one had to do with state taxes and charts of taxes.
Okay.
How do you find out, since we have to pay taxes all over the country now?
Yeah.
How do you find that out and add that to your cart?
So this is another one of those plugins that we talked about earlier. There are plugins that you can put into your cart that will calculate these. If you're using some of the larger platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce and Magento and so on, they all have this built in. You will have to most likely pay a premium price for you won't be able to get it in your entry-level program. You'll have to get a more robust package that they may offer. But if you're running a DIY program or you want to add something on your own, you can get a third-party plugin for your cart that will do this. If you're taking the route of I'm going to go bare bones here and do this myself, you certainly can get the information online. That would be a really rough way of doing it, but every state does publish its tax rates and so on. But you know, if you know you're selling into only a few market places that you need to know really well, you may be able to pull that off. But most of the times, this is going to be software-based solution. It's just getting too complex for you to do it on your own these days. Check each state that you know that you're going to have a decent footprint in or a decent amount of activity in, because each state now has its own laws, rules, and regulations. Now that we've rolled back the laws that said if you don't have a presence in the state, you don't have to collect state tax. Well, now that's changing, and if I remember correctly, you have to sell somewhere over six figures. It's like $100,000 or $120,000 worth of stuff into a state before they will begin to consider you an entity that you need to pay state tax into for selling into their state. But check each one that you know that you're going to have a firm presence in to make sure you're not crossing that line. And if you are, then you're going to have to be very familiar and incorporate into your cart the ability to collect tax in those individual tax regions.
Great. And Earl, Chris Smith says that Avalara, and I hope I've said that correctly, is a great tool to use.
Yeah, Avalara is actually one of the more popular ones out there. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you if they work seamlessly with every package, all those popular ones that we just mentioned, but I know they're like the number one go-to on online these days.
Very good. And then there was a question about the data, and you may talk about that later in the presentation and how that's protected.
Yeah, we'll touch on cybersecurity, I think, towards the end.
All right, very good. Thank you.
About that. Yep. Great questions. Keep them coming. So on the getting paid part, you may actually have a merchant account that you're using right now that you've had for years that's allowed you to take credit cards, and you may be able to plug right into that. I would say watch your fees. because when you open this up to online and you start getting multiple different types of cards from different areas, you may find that you're paying some additional fees that you were not used to with people who just walk through the door and pay. So make sure you understand how your online sales might change your merchant account fee structure. Of course, all the payment services that you're accustomed to or maybe have used personally at some point, Square, PayPal, Stripe, all of these services that are out there, Venmo, they have plugins for a lot of your more popular platforms that would allow you to accept payments through there. So if you've got a PayPal account, you may just be able to plug right into your PayPal account and keep right on going with something that you already know. So look at those as well. Just make sure that, again, that the fee structures are advantageous there as compared to what might be offered on say the cart platform. You can still use purchase orders. You can set carts up to where you can receive purchase orders and bill folks for that. If that's the type of e-commerce that you need to do, that can be done. Again, it's not ideal. It's not that quick turn on the funds that might. Please make sure that you're working this into your cash flow to make sure that you can float somebody for 30, 60 days while they're waiting to pay the bill and you're shipping them product. But purchase orders can still be done. And then I put that last bullet on there: certified checks, wires, and COD. For those of us that haven't been around long enough to know what COD once was, cash on delivery, that was a thing at one time and actually is still a thing in some foreign markets. So if you plan on going global, you need to understand that they don't always pay and they don't always have the same expectations of e-commerce in, say, Europe as they do in the United States. So be aware that some of the payment options you're offering on your e-commerce cart may not sync up as well with foreign markets. So do the research on that as well. If you're doing any kind of foreign sales and you're not familiar with foreign sales, my suggestion to you is a wire or a certified check is probably the only two things I would say you would want to accept in the beginning anyway, when you're getting to know that client, because those are the only two that you can be rest assured that once you get it, is yours. They can't take it back. You have the funds. It's not going anywhere. If you take credit card payments or any other form of payment online, e-commerce from a foreign land, it's not as safe. Let's just say they can roll that back after they get your product or whatever. So just be aware.
Good. And we have one more question. How do you know if the merchant account is included in the website that you use? And this particular question says that they're using Wix.
Okay. So usually the best way to tell is they start hammering you pretty quick once you sign up for their services to use their services for merchant account, because frankly, they make a lot of money on ferrying these transactions through the system. So if they have it, they've probably advertised it to you multiple times by the time you've signed up for your account. But that said, let's say you've successfully navigated and somehow avoided all of the sales tactics that they have in place. You certainly can go onto the platform and see what your payment options. Usually when you go into a cart platform, you go into settings, you look for the payment or the gateway options, and you go in there and there will be a list of those options that they accept. And one of them would be their own. And then you might see a list that has something like PayPal and Square and so on associated with it. So just go to your settings section. It's normally in there if you haven't seen it to this point. All right, great questions.
And I just searched for accepting payments on your Wix site, and it says that you must upgrade your site to a business premium plan in order to accept online payments through Wix.
Yeah, yeah.
So
great, thanks for that. All right, so moving on from the cart, moving into something that you know, if you build this cart, you obviously would like somebody to actually see it. So we'll talk a little bit about search engine optimization. Most of your carts, most of your platforms will have some form of an in-cart search engine optimization capability, where they will allow you to make sure that your keywords are correct, that you've set up things that you want to be found under. They may have some additional tools that will allow you to add some additional descriptive text to, say, the pictures and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Make sure you're taking advantage of that. Don't just, if you don't know what something is and you just leave it blank, chances are it had something to do with SEO and you're missing out on that.
And Earl,
Yes.
sorry for interrupting again.
Nope, go ahead.
Started talking about money, and all the questions started rolling in.
All right, all right.
So this one was about the international sales. And could you repeat your statement regarding the need for caution in regards to international sales and payments via wire transfer being rolled back, or were you referring to letters of credit?
No, I was specifically referring to credit cards and just regular checks, your typical daily type transaction things. If you get into the more complex, like letters of credit, wire transfers, certified checks, those are much, much safer. If you're just taking credit cards or really going out there in the wild, wild west and taking checks, then that's dangerous. That's dangerous territory to be in. So normally you want to work with your banker. Most of your larger banks will have an international banking person that you can talk to, and they will be able to educate you on some of the services they offer with your bank that will make that a little less of a roller coaster ride. Because let's face it, we don't all sell overseas all the time or into another country all the time. And it can be scary, especially, when you're excited. I remember when we were running our e-commerce site, every day you ran in, it's like Christmas. You wanted to see what orders you got overnight, and lo and behold, there'd be one in there. A famous one we always got was they wanted an entire pallet full of angle grinders. They wanted to send out next day air, and they were paying $500 more for it than they normally would. Well, that's a red flag. That's fraud. And if we had bit on that and sent it out and they paid by credit card, well, there'd be a pallet of angle grinders on their way and no money in our bank account. So just be aware. There are ways to do that right and to protect yourself, and there are ways that you will do it and in the course of being excited and maybe get burnt. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody after the session one-on-one who's considering international sales, some things that I've found that are good indicators of you don't want to take that sale. All right, good stuff. So outside of cart SEO, adding tools, specifically if you're running a WordPress WooCommerce combination, you may find some additional plugins that you can use that will allow you to increase your search engine optimization. Make sure that you're incorporating those as well. SEO can really be a full-time job if you allow it to be, and in many cases it should be, because again, you can build all of this, you can take all the time, implement all this technology. If nobody gets an eyeball on it, it's all for naught. So you do need to spend some time to do this right. Then we get to the question of, do I pay somebody to do this? It's pretty complicated. I don't know that I have the time. I don't know that I understand the tools. Should I pay somebody? Well, I've had people do this successfully, and I've had people get burnt on this. So first and foremost, make sure you're dealing with a reputable company. Ask for references. Talk to people who have used their services. Ask them if they've seen a sizable increase in their sales, in their revenues by the efforts put forth by this company. I would really recommend that you look local, because these are people you want to be able to knock on their door and step up in front of them and say, okay, explain to me what's going on here. If you're dealing with somebody that you can't do that with, it's a whole lot easier for them to use smoke and mirrors and make it look like they're doing the work that they really aren't. So again, I know Jerry and Anna and I have resources that we use that we know are credible resources. So if you're having difficulty finding somebody and being comfortable with paying them to do this, let us know. I'm sure we can lead you to several resources that you could choose from. So if we're putting all this work into it, we kind of need to know, is it working? Right? We want to know if the cart is performing. We want to know if the search engine optimization is working, and so on. So analytics comes into play. We want to be able to look at the numbers, who's been to the site, where did they go, what are they doing while they're there, how many carts were abandoned, why, where did they get abandoned, and so on. Those are all very important questions to make your e-commerce successful. Google Analytics is top of the list. It costs you nothing. It's easily incorporated. Most of the time, you don't have to have a web geek to get it all connected. Most of the cart programs these days allow you to set up a Google account and plug it right into your cart. So, highly recommend you use Google Analytics. All of your social media platforms offer some form of analytics for the traffic coming at them. Whether you're using it for e-commerce or not, it's good practice to get into your social media platforms, find out who's visiting, find out who's spending time, what are they talking about, what are they sharing, and so on, because that's good stuff for you to be able to then make your cart and your products and service listings that much more appealing to the potential client. Um, all of your e-commerce platforms, your Shopify's, your Wix, your WooCommerce, they all have a certain amount of analytics as well, albeit the lower grade the package is, the less analytics you get. So if you're using an entry-level program, you're probably getting the basics. How many people came to the cart and how many times did they abandon it? That's about all you're going to get. But if you want to get deeper, you're going to need something like the Google Analytics package to do that. And then look outside of your circles as well. Get some trending data, get some market analysis on what you're selling, the people you're selling to. Don't assume that everything happens within your circles. You want to get out there and read what other people are experiencing, what the clients that you're targeting, what does they have an interest in, what makes them click the buy button, and implement as much of that as you can into the cart. So here's a list of some of the primaries that I look for. If a client comes in and they say, okay, I got all these numbers in front of me, I got to pull them from Google and Facebook and all of that. I have no idea what it is. Tell me what this means. So these are some of the ones that I focus in on. First and foremost, I tell the client, focus on quality, not quantity. If you're coming through the door saying, we're doing great, I got 10,000 people to the website yesterday. Well, how many people bought? How many people shared? How many people engaged? If that answer is something less than 10,000, that's a problem. So you want to make sure that you're getting the right people to the site, that they're interacting with the site, that they're engaging with the product, the service, the efforts that you put forth on social media. Don't just go for the high numbers of followers and the like. That's not going to get you anywhere. Bounce rate is a very important one. The bounce basically is somebody came to the website, turned right around and left. They didn't do anything when they got there. That indicates that whatever they were looking for, they didn't find it and they left. So a high bounce rate indicates that your stuff is not presenting properly compared to what people were searching for. Time on the page or the site, how long did they spend on that A page? How long did they spend on the site while they were there? Obviously, the longer the better. How many carts were abandoned? At what point were they abandoned? That's valuable information to have as well. What page did they enter on and what page did they leave from? That's also important because that will tell you what pages are probably performing better on the search engines and which ones have the information that people were actually looking for. And that won't always be your homepage. The source or the search phrase that they used. If you're using Google Analytics, you can tell exactly where the traffic came from. Did it come from Google? Did it come from another website? Did it come from even another search engine? And what search phrase did they use to get there? Extremely valuable information. So you want to know what people were looking for, the exact words that they're using. And then, cross-platform comparisons. Make sure that you're not just reading Google Analytics and that's it. That's the gospel. No, compare that to your Facebook. Compare that to your shopping cart, and make sure that you're getting consistent messaging. If you're not, you may not even have your analytics set up right, or there may be some gap or some demographic information there that you're missing out on that you need to incorporate in your strategy. And those are all things, again, Jerry, Anna, our offices, we can help you kind of work through these and help translate some of this. So a word about email campaigns. This is a very popular way to get the word out, one of the more popular tools. You've all been a victim of that because you're all here in class today, and that's how we got the word out for this program. So we know it works, right? Make sure you're assembling a good list. This needs to be folks who have opted in, who have an interest in your programs, your services, your products. Always make sure that the information you're pumping out in your email campaigns useful, shareable, timely. You want to be newsworthy basically with content in your email campaigns. Plan ahead. Put together an editorial calendar. You should know right now what you're going to be putting your email campaign out for next month, next quarter. If you are sitting down for your email campaign and you're sitting down behind the computer and the first thoughts that come to mind are, okay, what am I going to write about today? Okay, that's a problem. You should know ahead of time what these email campaigns are going to look like. What are we going to push? What are we going to sell? What are we going to talk about as much as possible? And then maintain the data, review the analytics on your email campaigns. And when I say maintain the data, if somebody opts out, make sure they get opted out. Make sure that if somebody changes the email address, you get that updated. Make sure if somebody's email is incorrect and it bounces, that you get that corrected. Nothing will be more frustrating, and frankly, nothing will get you bounced from an email campaign company faster than not maintaining that email database. And then, of course, reviewing the analytics, as I think the previous slide indicated, there's a lot of valuable information there. You want to know if what you're doing is the right thing, if the stuff you're talking about is what people want to hear. So make sure you're checking the numbers. Some of the more popular email tools, MailChimp's probably number one of the folks that I talk with. It's free, up to, I can't remember how many thousands of addresses, so it fits most small businesses without any difficulty. Constant Contact is very popular as well. It's a very robust program. It is a pay to play type of program. I think their entry level program is like $20. And then you've got larger programs that are more than just email alone. MailChimp and Constant Contact are primarily email and event driven, where HubSpot would be more of a customer management system that you can actually invoice and keep track of people's birthdays and all kinds of things in HubSpot. And it has an email campaign management process to it. And then I've actually had people do this with QuickBooks. QuickBooks has the ability to generate automated emails to a database of clients. Now, it's not going to be pretty, and it's not going to be even on the analytics side. It's not going to have analytics associated with it. But if you're looking to use something that you already know and you don't want to spend any extra time learning something or any additional funds, you might be able to run it through QuickBooks. But I throw it in there because I've seen it done. I don't necessarily recommend that you do it that way.
Earl, I just wanted to mention that we have a workshop coming up in June that's specific to email marketing. That's over at the SCORE website at piedmontascore.org. If anybody wants to learn a little bit more about email marketing, and they're going to specifically going into the use of the Constant Contact tool. Maybe some of those concepts could apply to others, but if you're interested, take a peek at that.
Yep, good suggestion. Any education is good education, as I say. Get it when you can. Just real quickly, video is another tool you should have in your toolbox. Even if your shopping cart platform does not use video very well, you should have some links in the shopping cart that will allow somebody to go take a deeper dive on either the assembly or the use of your product, your service, behind the scenes tour of the office or the production facilities or whatever. All these things build credibility with the client, and video is the way we like to see things. Video is the number one way people like to interact with products and services online. So make sure that you have some form of video outlet. If you're struggling with how do I use a video in what I do, it's not video worthy. Trust me, we can find a way. Call Anna, Jerry, or myself. We'll find a way for you to use video. DIY, this does not have to be a Hollywood production, folks. I mean, if you've been on YouTube, you understand this is not high quality, high production type stuff. But that said, you want it to fit your style. You want it to be credible information. So make sure that you're doing the best that you can with the technology that you have. You should definitely be on YouTube. Using virtual meetings can be a thing. I know we're all virtual meetinged out at this point, but still, that is one of the ways the world has come to accept the way we interact. So make sure that you can use that effectively. And of course, social media. I remember the days when social media was words on a screen, and it was basically forums, and it was more like texting than social media. And nowadays, if you don't have a picture or a video, you don't even people just scroll right on by. So make sure that you're using that effectively as well. And I think one of the tools, on the next slide, Canva is a great tool. I think all of the folks in our group today use Canva regularly. They have a free version of it, so get out there and check that out if you have not used it yet. As far as social media goes, I mentioned this earlier. I won't spend a whole lot more time on it, but just understand that you can sell on social media. Know how to do that, know your audience, be in the right place at the right time, present the product in such a way that it is appealing to that audience. You can use some tools out there like Buffer and Hootsuite to make this easier on yourself, but beware that some of those third-party platforms do not, they don't interact as smoothly with, say, Facebook. I understand Hootsuite and Facebook don't get along very well in the sandbox. So test it out before you go all in on some of these third-party programs. I will say they do wonders for scheduling long-term campaigns out, but if they're not doing well, if they're not translating well into some of the social media platforms, you may not be able to use them, depending on where you're pointing them. And then you should also be able to use some cross-platform plugins. So if you say you're using WordPress, there's plugins that will allow you when you post a blog post, it will automatically push it out to a social media platform of your choice. Same way goes with some of your email campaigns like MailChimp and Constant Contact. If you send out an email campaign, it will automatically post it to your blog post. So since we're talking about blogging is a big part of e-commerce, in my opinion. Blogging is something that will keep your information fresh. It's good for search engine optimization. So just be aware that if you're not a blogger, if you've not delved into that yet, then you might want to check it out. WordPress is probably the #1 platform for that, and it allows you to add in some of the other things like we've been talking about, e-commerce and the like. It's great for SEO as well. So make sure that you're considering blogging. If you're not sure about that, if you're not a writer, don't worry about it. Come talk to us. We can talk to you about how there are some other ways that you can go about it and do that well. And then the last thing that I want to talk about, not because it's not important, it certainly is cybersecurity. You're out there, you're exchanging data back and forth. That's payment information, is personal information. You are responsible for that data. And as we've seen, especially in the South and over the last few days, cyber attack can be very impactful, not only to you, but those around you. And unfortunately, small businesses do not survive very well after suffering a major cyber attack. I'm sure the pipeline is going to be just fine. But if you were to be hacked as a small business and it was found out that you've leaked, say, your entire customer database with payment information, your chances of survival will go down tremendously. So make sure that you have some form of a cybersecurity plan in place. If you're not familiar with what this all means or where to even start, notice the North Star logo there. That is the SBDC's program for cybersecurity. We use standards-based programming through CMMC, which is just a fancy acronym to say it's the very basic stuff that you need to know for good cyber hygiene. The good news is most of it doesn't cost you anything. It's process and just getting a different mindset about how you do things. So if you're struggling with that, please reach out. You don't want to become a victim of this, and trust me, there's a lot of people gunning for you out there right now. So you you want to spend some time on this. I will tell you the biggest weakness is you. The biggest weakness is me. The software typically doesn't fail. The hardware typically doesn't fail. It's the interaction of the human being that normally is what fails us. So reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you with that. So what are your next steps? Jerry's already given us some future classes the SCORE has. There's some listed there from the SBDC. I don't know, Anna, does Women's Business Center have any upcoming topics that might be e-commerce or related? Or
Yeah, we actually do. I was going to mention we have a class on every month. We have a building business resiliency class during lunch, the third Monday of every month. And this upcoming Monday, we'll be talking about just the basics of digital platforms, which touched on some of those things. So not necessarily e-commerce related, but can be e-commerce related. But we'll be talking about some of those tools at 12, and you can sign up through our website at communityworkscarolina.org.
cool. All right. All right. All right. Well, thanks for sharing for those programs. I'm sure everybody will find them very useful. My contact information here on the last slide. Typically refer to myself lovingly as the resident geek for SBDC. So if you have something that has to do with internet sales, marketing, programming, any of these platforms we talked about, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to help. Erin, do we have any additional questions in the chat that we have not addressed yet?
Yes, there was one about, I'm looking for it. It was about how to sell through Facebook. And
yeah, that's a class in and of itself.
mhm.
My advice to you is you could certainly come in, sit down with one of us. We'd be happy to give you some of the basics on that, but you actually would probably be better served, at least in the immediacy, to sit down with something like Linda or YouTube or some of these platforms out there where people have sat down and done some how-to videos on it. That'd be a good place to get started, get yourself familiarized with some of the terms and methods there. And then if you've got specific questions, that's where I would suggest maybe you reach out to us. And if we can't answer it, we can probably get you in front of a resource that can help you directly with that.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, just starting with a search engine search on how to sell on Facebook, or how to sell on Instagram, or how to set up the Instagram or something like that.
Yep.
Those are good searches.
Yep.
And let's see, just wanted to make sure that you did say that you can sell through the different social media platforms.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then,
each one of them will have their own method, and some of them may allow the complete transaction to occur on their platform, and some of them may require that you have a website to close the transaction. So.
And then the same question about advertising through Facebook, just the same search.
Yeah, I would recommend just doing those types of searches, and then specific questions bring to one of the three of us here, and we'll be happy to work you through that.
Yes, and I will say this: working with someone like Earl or Jerry or Anna will help you save a lot of money, because
Yes.
the Facebook advertising, you have so many choices. You don't want to advertise too much, because then it becomes very expensive.
Yeah, and if you don't manage paid advertising, no matter what platform it is, if you do not manage that, you may as well just walk in the office every day and drop a $20 bill in the trash can, because that's about what it amounts to. It takes management to do that successfully. You can't just throw it up there and hope for the best. You need to figure out what's working, what's not. What words do you need to switch out that are not performing with ones that are, and so on. So it takes some management.
Very good. And Anna, thank you for putting your information in the chat as well. And everyone else, if you would please look at the chat, that's where the piedmont.score.org website is for the email marketing workshop in June, and then the Community Works information as well.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I appreciate everybody spending an extra 6 minutes of your time with us today. We went over a little bit, but hopefully you got what you needed. If you did not, please do reach out to us. We're here to help. And like I said earlier, we're your best first phone call. We don't cost you anything, and we're pretty well connected. So we'll get you the answer if we don't have it immediately. With that, I guess we'll go ahead and close out for today, and we'll see you all soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.